What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you enjoyed the preseason finale for the Cowboys. 31-13, the final score on Friday night against the Atlanta Falcons. As noted, the preseason officially over. The next time that we see this team play a football game, it will be 13 days from now. And it will count. It will be for real. It will be week one. It will be the season opener. And whether or not Micah Parsons is there completely and totally remains to be seen. I don't know if the YouTube side of this caught me staring at my computer for about a minute. There were some technical difficulties in getting off the ground. So if that was the case, apologies. But ultimately, we're all good. We're streaming live as we do each and every single Dallas Cowboys postgame show in both places, the Bleacher Report app and the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. A tip of the hat to our YouTubers. Obviously, I see you, Janie says hello. I see you, Fred says what's up. I see you, Joe says, why couldn't they play like this last week when I was at the game? LOL. Friday night for the Cowboys. I think this is a good opening statement. Friday night for the Cowboys was sorely needed. The Cowboys fans, everyone who has any kind of interest in the Cowboys absolutely sorely needed what we saw from the team on Friday night. It was good vibes, good energy, good times. Everyone's going to go to bed happy. Everyone's going to wake up happy. It was just kind of a breath of fresh air, I think, after what has been, I was going to say a couple of days and then I was going to say a week worth of cluster, but it's been like a year worth of cluster, 2 years worth of cluster. On some level, you could say it's been 30 years of cluster, but ultimately everything has felt so heavy and everything has felt so not fun for the Cowboys. So for Friday night to be a night where James Houston popped, where Joe Milton had his best game as a Cowboy, where Jaden Blue, we hope he's all right, played so well, where Phil Maffa had a moment where everybody just kind of ate. Everybody had a piece. Everybody had a moment. Everybody kind of had their play or their singular sort of point in time that belonged to them. It felt good. I feel like it scratched all the right places and tickled our hearts. And it was the kind of, it was like a warm, first taste of soup on a cold day. It was perfect in a lot of senses. I see you on YouTube. Johnny Boy says James Houston is an NFL defensive end. He's fantastic. He's awesome. He was the leader of my stock report, which is written already. It's going up at bloggingtheboys.com shortly. I think that James Houston absolutely has to be on the Cowboys' final 53-man roster. And by the way, while we're here talking right now to any and every single one of you who's watching this, we will have Dallas Cowboys roster cuts, or a Dallas Cowboys roster cuts tracker available at bloggingtheboys.com starting on Saturday. It's possible we start getting some roster cuts news. Obviously, teams trying to get ahead of things, teams trying to work some last minute 11th hour trades, whatever. So make sure to check bloggingtheboys.com on Saturday. Refresh. That post will be updated all the time continually to give you all the latest and greatest as it pertains to roster cuts and different moves and mechanisms the Cowboys are making and deploying. Also, while I'm making announcements, for anyone who's wondering a few minutes into this why this is not my normal setup, I have had some construction done in my home office this week. It's been a complicated one. So I'm not in my normal home office. I'm actually going to spend the weekend getting everything back together. So shows will look normal in the near future. But that's why everything looks so hunky-dory, if you're curious. Alex on YouTube says, if Milton's third, Greer is fifth. This is in response to Fred, who said Joe Milton did a lot better. I believe he's still the third quarterback. JWS said agreed. Milton still looks like QB3. Joe Milton is QB2 for the Dallas Cowboys. There's no question in my mind. I think that Joe Milton has always been QB2 of the Cowboys. I think he fortified that position on Friday night, but I don't think he had to. I think this was one of those follow the money situations. It's not really even the money, but Joe Milton is in the second year of his rookie contract. The team has so many more years of team control over him. He's younger. He's got more just physical, raw, athletic talent. It makes sense for him to be that guy. So this job was his from the moment that the Cowboys traded for him, but it certainly doesn't hurt that Joe Milton had his finest performance as a Dallas Cowboy on Friday night against the Falcons. And what I think was most impressive, or really most important about what Joe Milton did on Friday, was he ran the ball. I'm not trying to say the Cowboys were trying to put a square peg in a round hole over the first 2 weeks of the preseason, but it felt like Friday night was the first time that Joe Milton was really comfortable. Now, that could just be Joe Milton and not being comfortable the first 2 weeks against the Rams and the Ravens, but Joe Milton looked fully and totally in his own self with how he played against the Falcons. The touchdown run was awesome. Running in general was amazing, as noted, but the touchdown pass to Jalen Brooks was incredible. I mean, that was the play of the preseason for the Dallas Cowboys. It was awesome. It had so much touch under it. It was a tried and true legitimate NFL quarterback pass, which we hadn't really seen Joe Milton make. Obviously, we'd seen him just blast these things in and use that rocket arm, but to put some touch, to put some air underneath it was a really, really, really impressive mark from Joe Milton. And he's QB2. I'm not going to tolerate any argument otherwise. But let's see here in the chat. Kenny says, RJ, longtime listener and follower since 2016. Appreciate that, Kenny. You're the man. I got to say, it's nice to see a positive game to end the preseason going into week one. Vibes are good regardless. Like I said, I mean, we've been down pretty bad, right? Like, we've been in the mud. I've never played Survivor, but I feel like tonight's preseason game, Friday night's preseason game, had to feel like the people who go the distance, who play, it should still be 39 days, Jeff Probst, if you're listening, but the people who play that long and then like get their first shower, like this is what that felt like in a lot of ways to me. It felt like a cleansing after a really, really, really rough, couple of weeks relative to all the headlines coming around this team. I know we kind of had that little tiny reprieve with the Netflix documentary, but that was obviously purely nostalgia and looking back at the glory days and whatnot. I'm sure a lot of you have already, made it all the way through the documentary, but that's the only real opportunity we've had to kind of feel some joy. So Friday night was a lot of fun in that regard. Davis says, Joe looked more comfortable. I completely agree with you. Johnny Boy says, if cornerback is a concern for this team, then defensive tackle is right behind them. I'm really not that worried about corner. And I don't have any, evidence from the preseason to really kind of fix that for me, but we haven't seen Kaiir Elam really play a ton, obviously. Trayvon Diggs is kind of a wild card relative to being on the PUP list. Savon Ravel is a wild card being on the NFI list. Like, I understand the questions or the concerns that people have about corner, but to me, I mean, it's one of those things that with just like a few flaps of the butterfly's wings, it will stabilize and it will be fine. Like in a moment, not literally, but a figurative moment, Trayvon Diggs and Savon Ravel could both be back. And in that particular moment, you would have Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Kaiir Elam, Savon Ravel, Kalen Carson, right? Andrew Booth has had some nice moments in the preseason. I know he doesn't have the full and total trust of the fan base, but my point is, like, the reinforcements are theoretically returning at some point for a corner. So corner isn't that high on my panic list personally, but you may disagree with that. I do think that defensive tackle is by far the most concerning portion of the team for the Cowboys. I mentioned I read a stock report after each and every single Dallas Cowboys game, and Mazi Smith is one of my only stock downs. I know he had the awesome TFL, and it was cool. I mean, I think it brought a smile to all of our faces when Mazi had that moment against Atlanta. But I think immediately after, and this was noted on the broadcast by Bill Jones and Isaiah Stanback that, like, I mean, it was just a missed assignment. Like, good for Mazi making the tackle, but at the end of the day, like, you're supposed to do that. Like, it's not a good thing when your first round pick is playing in the final preseason game in their third year in the NFL. I don't know that the Cowboys would be so bold to cut Mazi Smith. I don't know that there's any real benefit to it. And I don't mean this the way it sounds, but I know we all obviously are here to talk about the Cowboys. It would, if the Cowboys cut Mazi Smith, I would feel for him, and I will root for him, and I want him to succeed, and I feel that way about each and every other player that is on the Cowboys, both now in the past and in the future. But that being said, if the Cowboys cut Mazi Smith, it will be somewhat impressive in terms of representing that the coaching staff has some actual say, right? I know we all believe that the coaching staff can't really do anything, can't really make any decisions, can't really make their choices, can't really play the guys they want to in their preseason. Like, pick your conspiracy theory. So for, if the Cowboys were to cut Mazi Smith, it would represent that the coaching staff is simply saying, look, this is not going to be a sunk cost fallacy for us. We're not going to carry a football player who's not going to help us just because he's in his third year as a former first round pick. We're not going to do that. There's not a lot of precedent for the Cowboys cutting a first round pick before their rookie contract expires with the team since the dawn of the 2011 CBA, which introduced the rookie wage scale. The only example is, everybody who hates Michigan now will tell you, was Taco Charlton. So shout out to Ann Arbor for producing potentially the only two players in Cowboys history over the last decade and a half that have that particular distinction. Kenny says another failed Michigan draft pick. That's right. Let's get to some questions in the chat. Shout out to all of you on YouTube. I love you so much. If you're new around here, please like the video, subscribe. Got daily videos coming out, and throughout the days when we don't have the long form videos, live shows, we've got recorded videos. There's all sorts of shorts. I'm also posting all sorts of clips all the time, each and every single day. My Instagram, RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Obviously, I'm on Twitter, X at RJ Ochoa. I'm anywhere and everywhere that you get content on the internet. I have a Facebook page if you want to go like that. Again, if you are consuming content on a particular platform on the internet, I promise you I'm there and we can be friends talking about the Cowboys. I mentioned some questions in the chat. Karam said lots of good stuff I saw tonight. I agree. This was a buffet where I got something from just about like every station. You know what I'm saying? Like there were there's like, oh, I don't want the Brussels sprouts. You know what I mean? Like there were very, very few portions of the buffet that I didn't visit tonight while watching the Cowboys. And that's a good thing. We can rightfully, objectively, rationally, lump it up to, oh, it's just a preseason game. And that's true. But I mean, it was a really, really sorely needed breath of fresh air beyond the fact that it is still good to see these things from a functional perspective. Let's see here. Karam says, yo, I had to watch the Rangers in this last preseason game. Shout out to my Astros who beat the Orioles tonight. That was a bit stressful. Certainly a bit stressful to watch in parallel with all this. Let's see here. Few more questions. I'll talk about Joe Milton. Fred says, do you think the Cowboys will carry 3 quarterbacks? I'm going to answer this because I think this is important information. It is silly, and you're not silly, Fred, but it would be silly for any NFL team to not carry 3 quarterbacks simply because of the way the rules work. In the aftermath of the 2022 season, when Brock Purdy and all the 49ers quarterbacks got hurt and San Francisco didn't have a quarterback to play with eventually in the NFC Championship game, the fraud one that the Eagles won, obviously. In the aftermath of that, the NFL introduced sort of ghost, whatever you want to call it, 3rd quarterback rule, which means when you have 53 players on your roster, but you only suit up 46 of them, for anyone who's unaware. You do not, so that means you have 7 inactive players every week. Again, if you're a newer NFL fan or you don't know this, maybe those 2 dots are connecting for you saying, oh, those are what inactives are each and every single week. That's correct. So you do not have to count 3 quarterbacks on your active 46-man game day roster. And those roster spots are precious because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to have an injury at a certain position. And you don't want to have 2 quarterbacks who are just on the sidelines that you suited up for no reason. Now, as a result of the Brock Purdy rule or whatever rule you want to call it, the Kyle Shanahan San Francisco rule, you do not have to have 3 quarterbacks active on your 46-man game day roster. One of your quarterbacks can technically be inactive, but suit up. And in the event of an extraordinary circumstance, an extraordinary emergency, like what happened to San Francisco that day, you can have that 3rd quarterback enter the game. And so in that respect, it's ridiculous to not entertain the idea of carrying 3 quarterbacks. You kind of are gifted that 3rd one. So I fully expect the Cowboys to carry 3 quarterbacks and for Will Grier to be the inactive one each and every single week, but be suiting up, obviously. So I hope that answers the question. JWS says, does Deuce make the cut? Not sure. Deuce Vaughn is an awesome story, and I will certainly root for him. I would be terrified if like Kyle Shanahan picked him up or Ben Johnson picked him up. To be fully honest with you, I would be very, very nervous about that. I don't think he does. There are a lot of questions in the chat about the running back position as a whole. I think we all think the Cowboys are carrying 3 running backs minimum, 4 potentially as a ceiling, and we're not counting Hunter Lipke in that quantitative assessment, right? Hunter is on the team, right? We're fully acknowledging that. So not counting him, Javonte Williams is seemingly making the team and for whatever reason doesn't even need to play in the preseason. Not trying to say anything negative about Javonte Williams, but I have no idea why the Cowboys feel like they don't have to see anything in the preseason. But I digress. But Javonte Williams is making this team. Jaden Blue is making this team. Phil Moff is making this team. I think there are a lot of Cowboys fans who would be content with those 3 being the running backs on the team. Miles Sanders, it stands to reason, makes the team. Obviously, he's a veteran presence, and those would be your 4. That means it's probably very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, for Deuce Vaughn to make the roster. I think it's already difficult for Miles Sanders to make the roster. So I just don't see a world where Deuce Vaughn makes it. I do think that the Cowboys probably carry Miles Sanders and take 4 also alongside Hunter Lipke to give them 5 total people in the backfield. But that's how I see the Cowboys kind of assembling this group when they get down to roster cuts on Tuesday. Let's see here. Eradication I Gaming. I think I got that right. Says, do you think Shamar James gets some starts this year? That's an interesting question. And as a Florida Gator myself, I started grad school this week. For anyone who's interested, it is super fun already. So shout out to my fellow Gators, which includes Shamar James. I don't know, and I hope not. I hope he plays. Obviously, he's got a lot of talent, and kudos to him for. I mean, look, the ball, like, Easton stick threw it like right to him. Like, so I mean, like, I'm not gonna make a, like, a big deal about the interception that he had. It was super awesome and it was super cool, and I celebrated and I fist pumped and I tweeted a gator emoji and posted on Instagram a billion different times. It was super cool. But like, let's not act like he had this like amazing break on the ball or anything. But he has flashed and he has popped and he has had awesome moments, not just in the preseason, but in camp. And obviously, Matt Eberflus is the linebacker whisperer. Like all the stock is pointing up for Shamar James. Is kind of my point. But if he were to start, that would really suggest that like crap has hit the fan. I think like you don't want you know. I think we don't want this team to be in a position where Shamar James has to start. We want them to be in a position where he can contribute. But I mean, and acknowledging the DeMarvion Overshown injury and that he's going to take some time. Maybe he's back by Thanksgiving. I know we keep talking about that in different ways, but Kenneth Murray, Jack Sanborn, Damone Clark, Maris Liufau, I just can't see a way where Shamar James starts. I certainly think there's a way where he contributes significantly, and I think he's capable of that. I think we've learned that obviously to this point in his very, very young career. Alex says if they try to stash him off on the practice squad like someone suggested, he'll be on someone else's roster this year. I love Phil Maffa. If you go back in our YouTube channel, I interviewed CJ Spiller, former NFL running back. It was one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. One of my favorite conversations I've had since last season, over this offseason, obviously. He was Phil Maffa's running backs coach at Clemson. He's still the running backs coach at Clemson. He had this just incredible insight into who Phil Maffa was as a person and his playing style. And he talks so much about how people just think he's this bruiser of a back and just think he's this physical guy when he's really elegant and has a really kind of, beautiful running style. And so I have been so in on Phil Maffa from the beginning. And maybe that's because I'm also an Arizona State Sun Devil and I hate UT and everything, but I have no prejudice against Jaden Blue. I want him to succeed, obviously, and he was awesome. I mean, first of all, we're hoping that Jaden Blue is healthy. I haven't seen any updates as I'm here with you all right now. But Jaden Blue popping for the Cowboys on Friday night was awesome. And that's the thing, like, you have these two rookie running backs. I don't know why you would feel the need to carry both Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I'm perfectly fine. And I think you all agree with this team carrying three running backs, carrying Javonte. If like, pick your veteran, but I think Javonte makes more sense and probably someone who can help you a little bit more. But Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, Phil Maffa, let's rock, let's party. Like, I think we're all down for that. And I don't know a single person, a single Cowboys fan who would disagree with that. And like, think about how difficult it is to get all of us to agree on something. And yet I think all of us would agree that that is the best way to go about assembling the running back group. Karan says, is linebacker a strength of this team? I think it is because they have, it's like in a video game when you have like a cloak or something that improves a certain skill, right? Like this cloak improves your speed by whatever. Like the Cowboys have the Matt Eberflus cloak. So like Matt Eberflus improves the state of the linebackers. Like in that particular sense, linebacker is a strength of the team because Matt Eberflus is the linebackers coach. And obviously when DeMarvion Overshown is healthy, you have one of the best, linebackers in the NFL, one of the best talents in the NFL at the position, another Longhorn. It's amazing. So, I mean, it's there, but I think the strength of this team is pass rusher. And so maybe you want to like lump, linebacker into that. Maybe you would just want to say front seven. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I can square that logic. But I mean, the fact that we're sitting here and there are a lot of you in the chat arguing for James Houston, like the fact that we're going to be upset if James Houston does not make this team is representative of how deep their pass rush group is. And obviously that statement is said with the assumption that Micah Parsons will return. And I think that we all think that that's going to happen, or like, I think that we all want to think that, but we're unsure. And this whole thing is crazy. But I mean, you've got Micah Parsons, Marshawn Nealon, Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, Donovan Ezeraku. I haven't even gotten to James Houston yet, right? Like the fact that you are so deep there is why I think we have, this team has the potential to be really good and to still contribute defensively and generate turnovers and generate takeaways and help the offense in that regard and be very similar to who they were in 2022 and 2023. I see you, Matthew, asking the question what the status of Blue is. I haven't seen an update on Jaden Blue. I did just see a tweet from the Cowboys official account shared. I think this is a clip of Jaden Blue, and is this? It's him and Bijan and DeMarvion Overshown, and Jaden Blue's walking around joking with them. It's all the former Longhorns between Dallas and Atlanta, kind of having fun after the game. So that would suggest everything's okay. Obviously, he did leave the game, with an ankle issue and the same ankle that he injured, obviously, early on in training camp. So I think you want to, make sure that everything's okay. But it seems like everything's okay would be my first kind of 30,000 foot perspective. Kenny says, I really want Perion Winfrey to make this team. Is that possible? I don't think it's impossible by any stretch. There will definitely be roster surprises. And I think that it's important to note, because not everyone fully understands the depths or the dynamics of roster construction. And that's what we're here for. That's our job. That's why we all come and gather together in the name of learning about our favorite team. There will be some weird roster stuff. Like, brace yourself. I told you we're going to be tracking each and every single roster cut. The Cowboys will cut a player, several players who they'll end up bringing back. There are rules in the NFL. Let's use Jonathan Mingo as an example. Jonathan Mingo hurt last week, is going to be out, between 4 to 6 weeks with the report. So the Cowboys have to decide how they're going to handle that situation. If they want to put him on injured reserve so that he's eligible to return, that means they have to carry him on their initial 53-man roster. So that means they have to technically store him, for lack of a better term, on the 53-man roster for a day on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, they can put him on injured reserve. He'll have to miss at least 4 games, and he can return sometime this season. The Cowboys are allowed 2 injured reserve spots that they can utilize and still bring back. Like, there are all these different mechanisms, and that's why I'm saying, like, I think Perion Winfrey has a chance because there are going to be some of these weird things. Like, I think it makes sense to assume that Jonathan Mingo will be on injured reserve to start the season. However he ultimately gets there, that could be the type of spot that opens up from a quantitative standpoint that leads to somebody like Perion Winfrey making the team, at least for the first month. Namir, thank you for the super chats. His thoughts on John Machota's Trayvon Diggs quote. Is this a recent tweet from Machota right now? I haven't seen anything. I'm looking here. I'm looking at John's tweets. Brian Schottenheimer said he does have a Jaden Blue update from Schottenheimer. Says, I don't think it's anything crazy. I don't think it's anything too bad. So that's awesome. That's great. Oh, I think this is what you're talking about. So John's tweet, John tweeted, everyone probably follows John, but John is awesome. Friend of Block of the Boys tweeted out, Micah Parsons declined to comment while leaving the stadium. Trayvon Diggs stepped in to answer questions for Parsons. I'm reading this for the first time, by the way. Will Parsons practice next week was the question that was posed to Trayvon. Trayvon said, I don't know. His back is kind of tight. He had to get an MRI today. I don't know. And then the question that was posed, will he play week 1? Talking about Mike, obviously. And Trayvon said, it depends on how his back feels. Okay, so let's kind of unpack this. I know we're here today to talk about the preseason finale. Obviously, I don't think anybody like super duper cares about how Dallas played against Atlanta specifically. Like, we care about the process of the preseason being over, and we care about what moves forward now, what happens next. And obviously a big thing with that is what happens with Micah Parsons. Thank you, JWS, for I think it was you confirming that this was the quote. Okay. So this is a pure conspiracy theory, and it's a very popular conspiracy theory, to be clear. It's a pet peeve of mine when people present popular theories as like super unique ideas. That's not what I'm doing here. But that being said, I thought that Micah was not going to show up today. I thought maybe he wouldn't. I shouldn't say I thought he wasn't going to show up. I thought that maybe he wouldn't, based on what Jerry Jones has said very recently to Michael Irvin, to Stephen A. Smith, like to Fox, like pick your Jerry quote. But he showed up, and that was, that answered a question at least. And it seems like now, especially given that Micah showed up and didn't take a stand after Jerry's, media tour, it seems like Micah is intent on showing up. This is purely my read on the situation. It seems like Micah is, ready and willing to show up, so that he's not fined, so that he's not, docked anything, so that he meets his minimum requirements, for lack of a better term. And so that he ensures that this year tolls for him, because as has been discussed many, many, many times, if Micah were to leave now and stop reporting after a certain period of time, the Cowboys would obviously retain his rights in the here and now, but his contract for this year would essentially not exist. He would not fulfill this year in 2026. If Micah went home, picked up his ball and went home, and didn't return to the Cowboys at all, held out through the entire season, his contract would toll, and the Cowboys would hold his rights through his 5th year, which they currently do right now, in 2026. Micah would basically just be kicking that can down the road, which Micah doesn't want, right? Like Micah wants this contract to end in a theoretical sense so that he can get closer to free agency, get closer to the franchise tag, whatever. I think that point is understood. So the conspiracy theory at this point in time would be that Micah's back is tight, that he shows up and he can't play because his back is tight. So Micah not being able to play is still fulfilling his contract, still allowing his 5th year to toll, still allowing him to fulfill his contractual obligation. He just happens to be hurt. I'm not going to accuse Micah of lying. I'm not going to accuse Micah of faking an injury. I'm not saying that at all. But in a world of hypothetical conspiracy theories, that's the one that makes a lot of sense, right? Is that his back would be tied and he would not be able to play. He would still technically be fulfilling his contract, and the Cowboys would not be benefiting from his play on the field. And that, I don't know, magically, if he were to get the contract extension on the terms that he's so seeking, his back would magically heal, right? Like, again, this is the conspiracy theory. And I mean, the Trayvon quote, to answer the question that started and spawned this whole discussion, kind of seems like Trayvon has Micah's back, no pun intended, right? Like Trayvon's like, I don't know, man, his back's actually hurt. Like Trayvon is selling not the company line, but the company of Micah line, right? Like Trayvon's like, look, he had an MRI today. I don't know if he's going to play. It depends on his back. Depends how he heals. Depends how he feels. If he's hurt, right? Like that's kind of the direction that this seems to be going. And that is not something, for all that Jerry has tried to do with taking control of the narrative or seizing control of the narrative, that would be out of the Cowboys' control, because Micah can say, and I can tell you that this is very possible because I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan and lived this with Kawhi Leonard. Micah could say, I don't feel healthy. I don't feel right. My back hurts, whatever. Again, we're talking hypothetical conspiracy theories here, and would not be able to play. And that would not be great. Alex says, I don't consider it lying. I consider it not taking a risk of hurting it more, since Jay doesn't want to risk paying him his worth. That's a much friendlier, much more politically correct way of verbalizing it. I'm just telling you, what it is on its, kind of a bare, bones, what is actually hypothetically in a conspiracy theory sort of way potentially happening. We obviously have seen this a lot in the world of sports. I mentioned the Spurs example. Let's see here. Namir says the back didn't look too tight when he was crushing those nachos. I genuinely hate this management because they have brainwashed half the fan base to turn on Micah, pay the man. Yeah, like, we did a live show, myself and Dave Sturcio, on Thursday night. If anybody wants to go check it out after the Jerry media tour. And yeah, it's amazing that so many people are just like, well, Jerry said, so Micah's wrong. And Jerry might be telling the truth. I mean, he really might be. I think it's fair to say that everyone could be right, and everyone probably is right. On some level, Jerry's probably right. On some level, Micah's probably right. On some level, I think we are all right. It's just a matter of who's willing to be right less for the sake of getting this overall thing done. And that's kind of like the major crux of the issue. I did want to address a comment from Matthew, not to be narcissistic. I give you my word, but because a lot of you have said this, I appreciate it. Matthew says, RJ, please don't tell me you saw the Netflix documentary. You come out in the 8th episode. And so a sincere thank you to everyone who has told me about that. It is very flattering, and I'm just truly honored that you would all think to tell me that. And it's very cool that people are shouting me out and letting me know. I have only seen the first 4 episodes myself personally, and so far I have avoided the context of how I'm in the documentary. I have an idea based on the title of the episode, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but that's so I have a vague idea. I'm very excited to check it out and to feel like Joey Tribbiani pointing at Dr. Draker Moore type of thing. But thank you to those of you. I feel very, very special and very, very loved. So thank you. Kenny says, can somebody help me make heads or tails the last couple of days with Jerry's interviews? Are we on his side now with this? I don't think so. Personally, like my own personal read on this, and again, like I just said, I think everyone is right. I think everyone has a point. I think everyone has a legitimate reason to feel the way they feel. If you believe that Jerry had this handshake deal with Micah, whatever, like I'm exhausted of arguing this at this point in time. My ultimate end of the flow chart, conclusion I have reached is that you and I right now, we are talking on Friday, August the 22nd, 2025. The preseason is over. And for the second year in a row, the Dallas Cowboys went through this exact full total point in time with one of the very best players on the team not taken care of. So you can tell me it's Jerry's fault. You can tell me it's Micah's fault. You can tell me it's David Mulugeta's fault. You can tell me it's the fault of the person who served Micah Parsons the nachos that he was eating on his walk into AT&T Stadium on Friday night. I really don't care whose problem or whose issue or who instigated this or whoever's fault it was at this point in time. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. It's depressing to be at this point in time. There's a week left in August. It's week 0 in college football. And yet this is still a thing. If these were the conversations, if Jerry was going on this media tour in the middle of April, it would still be insanely dumb, don't get me wrong, but at least it would be at a time where you have time to be dumb. You don't have time to be dumb right now. The preseason's over. You've been back from Oxnard for some time now. Like this is a joke to still be here. It's time for anyone to swallow pride and get this thing done. And the frustrating thing is that even when it does get done, none of us are going to feel good. We're all going to be upset that we got to this point in general. So it's a tough scene, and I hope it has a resolution pretty soon, if that isn't obvious. Janie says, why don't players honor their contracts? I'm that's a complicated question, Jenny, but what I would say is that on Tuesday, the Cowboys are going to not honor a lot of contracts, and every NFL team is going to not honor a lot of contracts. Tuesdays, we get excited about roster cuts and 53-man rosters being set and et cetera, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Now it's time for week 1. But on Tuesday, like hundreds of players across the NFL are going to lose their jobs. On Tuesday, hundreds of players are going to have their dreams crushed. On Tuesday, 32 different NFL franchises will not honor hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of contracts for NFL players. So if you're playing by the rules of engagement, this is a very popular modus operandi by everyone involved. So in that particular sense, I don't fault Micah Parsons. I don't fault Micah for trying to get his. I don't fault Micah for trying to do what's best for him. I think that Micah's entitled to do what he wants to do. But let me see if she'll come here. I mentioned I'm not doing this show in my normal office. Come here, honey. My little dog, Honey, I don't think she's been on many shows. Come here, Honey. This is Honey. You're all familiar with Bear, but this is Honey. She hasn't been on a lot of shows in the past. Bear is asleep. And Honey wanted to check things out. I wanted to say hi. I think she heard me venting, and she wanted everything to be calm and everything to be fun and full of love as we end, because the Cowboys did win tonight. The Cowboys did have a strong performance against the Atlanta Falcons, and Joe Milton looked good. Jaden Blue looked good and is seemingly okay. Phil Maffa looked good. James Houston looked good. I know we all want to say Justin Houston. Shamar James looked good. Everything was good. Everything was awesome. Everything was fun. And that's great. A lot of you like Honey in the chat, and I appreciate that. And actually, this was kind of a coincidence, but tomorrow, Saturday, is our gotcha anniversary for Honey. We got Honey 2 years ago tomorrow on Saturday. So August 23rd, 2023 was when this little fluff ball came into our lives. And she's the most energetic person in our household. She keeps us on our toes. And this is her first time here on a live show. And that couldn't have happened if not for the construction in the home office. So let's say hi, Honey. Say hi to everybody. And let's go ahead and get out of here. Yeah. And that's Bear. I think these two are ready for bed. So I hope you all had a great time watching the Cowboys on Friday night. It's the best time of year that we're all able to hang out together, all of us, and talk Cowboys, experience it with one another. I say this all the time, but the high school version of myself would never believe that he had friends on the internet who wanted to talk about the Cowboys with him. So let's go ahead and let's get out of here. And I'll have a winners and losers from Friday night video up on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel on Saturday. Everyone subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get access to all those. Like I said, if you follow me on social media, Instagram at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Obviously, I'm on Twitter at RJ Ochoa as well. You get access to all the clips and all the little videos and blurbs that come out, all the fun stuff. But everybody have a great rest of your Friday night, and I'll see you on Saturday. And you want to say bye, honey? Want to say bye? That's a good girl. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time.